How I Escaped Two Mysterious Beings, One Fateful Night. It was a cold December night around 3 a.m. as I was driving home from work. The fog hung low over the empty roads, creating a spooky silence. I'd done this drive countless times over the past 7 months, but something about this night felt different. After grabbing a coffee from McDonald's near my office, I continued my routine drive home, unaware of the strange events about to unfold. As I drove along the deserted road, I noticed a man in a gray suit standing by the side. He was holding a black leather bag and looked out of place, especially at this hour. He gave me a thumbs up, asking for a lift. It was odd to see anyone there, as I had never encountered anyone on that road before, especially not at this time of night. I hesitated for a moment, but he seemed like a respectable man. Against my better judgment, I decided to stop and give him a ride. I rolled down my window. "Where are you heading?" "Just to the station," he replied. "All right, hop in," I said, opening the door. He thanked me and introduced himself as Howard. I asked how he ended up on such a desolate road at that hour. He explained, "I was in a cab, but the driver had to leave for an emergency, so I got stranded." It sounded reasonable enough, and I continued driving. The full moon lit the way, and for a moment, the unease began to fade as we talked about ordinary things, family, work, and life. That's when the engine sputtered, and the car came to a sudden stop. We were stranded on that foggy, desolate road, and no mechanics would be available at this hour. Howard and I got out to check the car, but everything under the hood seemed fine. I couldn't figure out what was wrong, but deep down I felt something was off. Not just with the car, but with the entire situation. As I pondered, I heard faint footsteps approaching from the direction of the woods. My pulse quickened. I turned, expecting an animal, but out of the shadows emerged a woman with long, disheveled hair. She looked terrified, muttering frantically, "Please help me, please, they're coming." I stepped forward cautiously. "What happened?" I asked. "Someone's chasing me," she gasped, her voice trembling. "They'll hurt me if they catch me." Howard stood frozen beside me, equally shocked. I shouted, "Howard, get her in the car now! We need to get out of here!" We scrambled back into the car. The woman, visibly shaken, screamed, "Go, go now!" My hands shook as I turned the key, but miraculously the engine roared to life. I hit the gas, my heart pounding. After a few miles of tense silence, I offered her some water, but she refused. The silence in the car was heavy with fear. I couldn't ignore what had just happened, so I asked, "Who's after you?" She barely managed to speak. "My friend and I were camping in the woods. Then they came." "Who came?" I asked, but she couldn't respond. She was too panicked to explain. I decided we should head to the sheriff's office for help. "Let's go to the police," I suggested. "No," Howard shouted suddenly, his voice shaking with intensity. "We don't need the police. Let's handle this ourselves." His reaction was startling, but somehow it made sense in the moment. I pulled over near the edge of the forest where the woman had said they were camping. "We need to figure out what's going on," I said, grabbing a flashlight. Howard, the woman, and I ventured into the foggy woods. As we walked, the mist seemed to grow thicker with every step, clinging to us like a living thing. The woman led the way, but something about her seemed off. Suddenly, I turned to ask her a question, but she was gone. Panic shot through me. "Howard! Where is she?" I yelled. "I don't know," he responded, looking just as confused as I was. Before I could react, a chilling laugh echoed through the fog, sending shivers down my spine. The sound wasn't human. It was twisted, distorted. Howard pointed toward the source of the eerie noise, and we cautiously approached. Through the fog, we saw a figure sitting by a tree, its back toward us. The figure seemed to be humming something, but it was too faint to make out. I moved closer, gripping my flashlight. "Turn around," I called out. Slowly, the figure turned, and my blood ran cold. It was the same woman, but her eyes were glowing a haunting red, her face twisted into a ghastly smile. She started laughing, a deep, maniacal laugh that echoed in the fog. I stumbled backwards, screaming for Howard. I sprinted back through the mist, not stopping until I realized I had left Howard behind. Panting, I stopped and called out, "Howard, where are you?" "I'm here," a voice replied from the fog. I ran toward the voice and saw a figure in a gray suit standing with his back to me. "We need to get out of here," I yelled. But as he turned around, my heart stopped. His eyes were glowing red too, just like the woman's. his face twisted into a grotesque grin. I barely had time to react before everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Disoriented, I shouted, "Where am I?" A nurse approached calmly. "You're in the hospital. The sheriff found you unconscious in the woods." It took me a moment to process her words. How did I get here? And where are the people I was with? I asked, recalling Howard and the woman. The nurse hesitated, but before she could answer, the sheriff walked in. "We found you alone in the forest," he said. "But the people you described, Howard and the woman, they were killed 12 years ago in those same woods." My blood ran cold. I left the hospital in a daze, and soon after, I quit my job. I never drove that route again.